Hey guys, I've got two more books for you on the topic of like how to build a better society. I've kind of got a shot and a chaser because one of them is super depressing and the other one is kind of the solution to the super depressing problem. So the super depressing book is The Limits to Growth, which is a 1972 book that was put out by the Club of Rome. It was using a computer model to try, and it was one of the first supercomputer models to try and simulate what would happen to the world's systems if we kept on the same trajectory that we were going. It was hardly a left-wing project. It was funded by like Rockefellers and like Volkswagen and things like that. But running these simulations with a group of scientists at MIT, they came up with the conclusion that if we continued with a growth-based economy and a constantly growing population, we would eventually overwhelm the world's just natural systems, and we would see some form of societal collapse at the latest by 2100, by that year. Worth noting that it's now been 50 years since this report came out, so we're about halfway into what they kind of their normal projection said it was going to all fall apart within 100 years. But basically they said unless we can build a sustainable economy that isn't based on constant extraction and on constant growth, we were more or less fucked. For a few years, people took this very seriously. The Carter administration in particular put solar panels on the roof of the White House. They encouraged people to wear, sweaters instead of turning on their heat. But as soon as Ronald Reagan was elected, they basically took all the brakes off and said, no, all growth is good. When they asked James Watt, Reagan's Secretary of the Interior, whether or not he thought that it was worth trying to preserve the earth for future generations, he said, well, I don't know how many generations we can count on before the Lord returns. And so that's why we're all fucked right now, is because we elected a bunch of fundamentalists. So since then, their predictions, the Club of Rome's predictions, have largely been true. It was a bunch of different simulations, and it was kind of running all of these different projections, and a lot of them seem to be accurate. A lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now with stresses placed on our economy just by the limits of what the world can support seem to bear out that they were correct. So the question then is, how do we build a world that could be more sustainable? And there's a book for that too. So the chaser to our shot is E.F. Schumacher's Small is Beautiful: Economics as If People Mattered. This came out the same year as The Limits to Growth, and it's basically Schumacher was an economist who focused a lot on Gandhi's ideas, and more specifically Gandhi's kind of anarchist ideas around how a small economy should work. And what he was trying to put forward was an entire system in which our economies are based around local communities. They're based around keeping things sustainable, around not taking more out of the earth than we put back into it. Obviously, this has limits on, on the luxuries that we have, but it's also a way that we could build an economy that doesn't completely destroy the planet. So if you've been worried about the current trajectory of modern capitalism and you're trying to look for something that is, an alternative that isn't just kind of Russian or Chinese versions of capitalism, which is what we've currently got, then Small is Beautiful is a great one for you to check out.